right, well, let's get it back on. Welcome back to the Family Banking Podcast. I'm Chuck. My co-host is
John Dell.
Yeah, John, my son John joining me. That's great.
From John Dell Construction.
Whoa, look out. Put a plug in for that. John's also a family banker, and he works with me coming up here, and we're getting ready to do a big conference up in the Fort Worth area. But we're down near San Antonio in Austin, Texas. We're glad to be with you, and we're going to cover some topics today. We're going to kind of do this generationally. So we're talking about multi-generational wealth. What does that mean? When to get started? When to, really, some of you, I hope, are homeschoolers, and you want to include something in your training of your children about money. Right, John?
Right. Yeah.
What about money? What is money? How does money work?
How to handle it.
Terms like compound interest, debt. What is debt? What's good debt? What's bad debt? How about a mortgage? What is that? Can you balance a checkbook?
Right.
How do banks work? What about that fractional reserve banking?
That's a lot of terms right there.
No. Have you ever heard of the Federal Reserve?
Federal Reserve. Heard it before.
Woo,
I don't know if I can explain it.
There ain't nothing federal about it, buddy. It's a privately held organization sanctioned by our government to charge us for our money and to bloat the money supply. There's a good book, John. I've probably referenced it to you before. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. That's all about the Federal Reserve. People ought to look into that.
Take a look at that, guys.
So John clearly is a little bit younger than me. He's in his late 20s now, and he started his family banking concept when he was 23. So it's not too young, right, John, to get going. It's
never too young.
Why is it a good time to get going?
Why is it a good time? Well, I think it's lots of reasons, but probably mostly from the old adage, if you want to have a shade tree, plant it today because it'll be there for generations to come. So you're not going to see the fruit now, but I think we can talk more about this later. But with private family banking in particular, the earlier you get started, the better. So we can delve into that more.
That's great. Yeah.
Anyhow.
The idea of if you want a shade tree, you don't going to get that next year, right?
Yeah.
It's a long-term play, right?
It's a good minute.
That's right. Better than a good minute. So not like a New York minute, but not like a New York strip either. But so we're going to talk about money. Let's think about it. Okay. So Albert Einstein said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And either it will use you or you will use it. Now, what do we mean by that? What do we mean, Bob? Let's just do the math. Do you know that if I took a penny a day and doubled it for 31 days, do you think that'd be a lot of money? Doesn't sound like
it. It doesn't sound like it, but it is.
It is. So, John,
you doubled it, compounding.
Many times in my courses, I'll say, okay, I'm going to have Susie over here and Jenny over here, and I'll offer Susie $2 million right now.
Right.
And I'll say, okay, but Susie, you have a choice. You can take $2 million right now, or you or Jenny can pick $2 million now, or you can take a penny a day doubled for 31 days. Do you know what a penny a day doubled for 31 days is? $10.5 million, maybe somewhere a little bit more.
Pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. So, the power of compound interest.
Yeah.
Now, if you double something every day, that's pretty powerful. Now, we're not talking about this. This is a long-term play. But it does use the same formula. So if I make 10% compound interest every year, now that'd be pretty hard to accomplish. And I'm not suggesting you expect that. But if you did, so the first year you'd have $1. The next year you'd have $1.10. And the next year after that, you'd have 10% more than $1.10. So over time, it really adds up. So there's the idea of the time value of money. Money grows over time. So if I could show you a way to grow your money tax-free and compound it, what would we call that, John?
What would we call that? We would call that private family banking.
We'd call that private family banking.
Totally.
You know why? Because it's private, meaning you own it.
Right.
And it's banking because we're creating. And we'll get into how that works. But I want to talk broadly about sort of breaking this down by age groups. But essentially, that private family banking idea is getting control of your capital, building it long-term, having access to it, protection from creditors and bankruptcies and from people that want to sue you more than bankruptcy, and protection from the wilds and the up and down swings of the market. You ever hear of the boom bust cycle?
Boom bust.
Boom bust. So when it's booming, what's that mean? You're in construction,
when you're happy.
right?
It's when you're happy.
What happens when in the construction business when it's booming?
Everybody's busy.
Everybody's
lots
busy.
of
Can
work.
you find? Is it easy to
And
find
you'll
subcontractors?
Make money whether you're trying to or not.
Whether you're trying to or not, or maybe lose money whether you're trying to or not.
Yeah, most of the time, you if you're pretty smart, decently smart, you don't have to work too hard to make money.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
What happens in the bus cycle?
Yeah, then it's really hard to make money, and you're probably losing money more than you.
And it's hard to get work, right?
Yeah.
And the margins get slimmer, right? We all know what profit margin is.
You need to know your costs.
Yeah. You need to have available labor.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get control of your costs, and that's everything: insurance, gas, transport, setup time, material cost, right? What happened during COVID, man, in your business?
Well, it slowed down for a little bit, but for a lot of people, it got busy, very busy.
What about the cost of product?
Yeah, the product went up. It was very volatile, so you had to keep up with weekly probably on your pricing because it would just change constantly. So
Exactly. So
anyway, yeah.
So much like the building business, and if you trace the ups and downs of the building business, it's going to trail the ups and downs of the economy. The leading indicators, the building trades would probably be a lagging indicator, right, of the economy in general.
Right.
And it starts with interest rates. Who sets the interest rates?
The government.
The Federal Reserve, right? Our friends at the Federal Reserve. They're not your friends, my friend. And they're not family oriented. So we're talking about trying to find a way to work with us to help you get free of the mainstream banking system. And let's talk about money, though, and let's back up a little bit and talk about money and the power of compound interest. And where do we introduce these things? So the idea of a family bank, right? It's a long-term idea. It can be multi-generational, but you want to train your kids to start thinking about money, what money is, how it works, and earning money, right? And the value of a dollar, to coin a phrase, and how to leverage that through their lifetime. You know, right now, if you look at the internet, they're talking about the rampant inequality or inequity between the ages. And people right now, young people in their 20s and 30s, are experiencing this tremendous wealth gap. I just did an article pull off today. It says the share of the wealth belonging to the bottom 50% of Americans stayed dismally low and has remained flat for decades. That means younger people are not getting ahead. Do you feel that, John?
Yeah.
At times? And so it's hard to buy a house today. What's happened to interest rates? They went where?
They went up.
They went up. What's happened to the price of homes?
They went up.
They went up. So they got the double.
Got more expensive.
What happened to the value of the dollar?
Went up.
It
went down. The value of it. So it takes more money to buy the same amount of product.
That's right. So we have the trifecta. We have an increasing rise in prices. We have an increasing rise in costs. We have a suppression of wages and earnings. And we have a devalued dollar, a dollar that's decreasing. So this dollar's today. So I'm not a big advocate of a 15-year mortgage, by the way, because if you take a 30-year mortgage, you're paying that back with cheaper dollars because inflation's going to eat up the value of that dollar at least, right?
Yeah. So right now you're getting at basically with everything going on right now, it's getting harder and harder, especially if the government keeps on printing more and more money.
Oh, yeah.
The importance of making use of every minute of that dollar you're making today, the more you can do to make profit or passively use that dollar multiple times today, the better, because in the future it's only going to work less. So that's kind of where you're going to get where we're getting.
Got to use that same money in more than one place at the same time. We're going to talk about how to do that. So let's talk about what you just said. So these young people, let's talk about young 13 to 18-year-old guys, right, and gals coming up.
Just graduating high school or getting into high
school. So you parents, let's homeschool them. Let's teach them the value of money, but let's teach them how to make money. Let's get them some marketable skills, right?
Right.
It could last their lifetime. Tell the audience a little bit, when did you start your carpentry work? How old were you?
I mean, I think the skills started before high school, obviously through your younger years. So yeah, I mean, skills start when you're 10 years old. So from there, you should be gaining experience. It may be small, but yeah, I think the goal is to train your children in a way that builds skill from an early age, and that just continues on through their adult years as they get older.
Skill building has an economic value.
Right.
Don't forget, what we're talking about today, audience, is we're talking about economics. We're not just talking about earning money. Money has to exist in an economic system.
Right.
It's a way, it's short of barter, of exchange between people, businesses, and a society. And so money's not bad. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil, the Bible says. So prosperity is a biblical concept. Fiduciary or responsibility about your money is also a biblical concept. So we're talking about building skills. Skills learned young, have an intrinsic value that you can quantify for the rest of your economic life cycle. So you have skills today.
Investing in self.
That's right, investing in self. So we've got to talk about building into these families a sense of unity, purpose, a family mission, a charter. We can get into all that with legacy planning. We'll come alongside you with a guidebook, a roadmap of trying to think about legacy planning. As far as the skills, it could be music, it could be teaching music, performing music, it could be building trades, welding, plumbers, electricians. You could get into what we do. You could get into flipping properties, right?
Right.
You could get into, buying a tractor. Fixing cars. I mean, the auto mechanics I use, man, when my diesel truck goes down, I know it because the labor hours are highly compensated. So become a diesel mechanic. I don't think you'll ever fail for work.
No. You might want to be an electric car mechanic. I don't know.
Yeah, or electric car mechanic. I don't know. It depends on where they're taking that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of things. So let's go through the decades. So when we're looking at, let's say 10 to 20-year-olds, right? That's a tremendous amount of time and opportunity over a 10-year period. You could learn multiple skills and talents, right?
You're saying 10 to 20?
Yeah, from 10 to 20 years old. And you can learn the discipline.
That's about a doctorate degree right there.
Yeah, it is. It is a doctorate. And would you say that the discipline of learning hard work and sticking to something is key?
That's huge, yeah.
When you bring in young people into your company, John, to do construction work, sometimes you find those younger people, some of them haven't learned what? The discipline of, I think, just thinking ahead. And watching and seeing what that person might need. You don't need to know a thing about the work you're doing, but if you watch that person you're helping, if you're only a helper or whatever, you're cleaning the trash, watch that person, see what they're using a lot and what they might need, and just trying to actually be ahead of the curve. Anticipation. Right? What you're talking about is when you're on a work crew.
Right.
If you haven't learned the value of hard work, being on time.
Right.
Sticking to it and anticipating the needs of who you're working with, what good are you?
Right.
That is an asset.
And that's an asset that is hireable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So this is more than about money, folks. So that 10 to 20 year period, whatever you're doing with your kids, incorporate hard work.
Right.
Back in the day, I've raised a large family. We had several family businesses. We always had a farm. We currently have a farm as well. We still work actively on it. We had the kids all involved. We had a janitorial business. We used to clean office buildings. We sold eggs and chickens and turkeys and you name it. We did it. We had a milk cow herd at one point when John was a teenager and his brother. We milked some cows and had a milk shares program. I was involved in the delivery of that, and we built a website. We had lots of referrals. There's just lots of ways that families can get together. You don't have to have an army of kids, but the more kids you have, the more you have to have a plan. So it all starts out, it really starts out with a philosophy and with values and a family construct. So if you're going to really have a functioning family banking system, that's at the other end of the scale of that's what you're growing into, right? You just can't poof. You've got to have some sensibility about what the family is doing together. Now, I'm not saying every member of the family is going to stay on the ranch or the farm or at home, but you could create a synthesis of capital and say, okay, I'm going to create this family banking system. I'm going to have part of it. You're going to have access to it. But with access, this goes back to the Rockefellers, and I don't want to glorify them or some of the other families. The Vanderbilts didn't do such a good job. The Rockefellers did. The Rothschilds did a tremendous job, still do. Of course, they're part of the big cartel that controls money. However, what they got was a big idea is that let's create a family system where you can go and we'll be the bank and we'll loan the money at a certain rate. But you have an obligation to return it with a profit. And so once you instill into somebody that, most of these young people that go to these colleges, they're sort of on a exploratory fishing trip. They want to go to college to find themselves. Well, what they find out is about age 35, they didn't find themselves. What they found out is life is sometimes just drudgery and hard work. So let's move into the 20 to 30 span.
Right.
20 to 30
the goal is today with this show is kind of give each maybe phase every 10 years of a person's life. what could they be doing today? That's kind of the premise of this show right now. Is Dad's lived a good many years, so he can talk about all the phases, and I can help give some insight. But right now, we're just talked about the younger years, 10 to 20, basically. What can that person do right now? And that's basically just learn life skills. They might not be ready to start a private family bank or think about multi-generational banking at this moment. But the first 10, 20 years, highly suggest learn practical skills, build upon, gaining skills that can put you ahead of the guy up next to you, so to speak.
And I'm watching some of my grandchildren who are under 10 years old, 8 years old, 5 years old. Their parents are training them the basics of keeping up a home, loading the dishwasher, being on time at the dinner table, sitting up straight, getting up in the morning, making your bed, cleaning your room. They got charts on the wall, pictures. Here's what the good room looks like. This is at the end of the day, the kitchen needs to look like this. At the end of the day, your bedroom needs to look like this. Big black, big color photo and big chart on their wall so they know. That's really cool.
I think I need one of those.
Yeah, I do too. In my office, I don't know what it looks like today, but we're probably going to have to black out some of this background. But we're in my office here in near Austin, and between Austin and San Antonio, Texas. We're glad to be with you. And we're just going to keep talking about this generational phasing. And the future episodes, we're going to get into the mechanics of what does a family bank look like? How do you put it together? What are the benefits? What are the returns? How would you structure it? We do all of that. We walk along with you. And again, we also have a legacy planning system we can talk about down the line too. And now's the time, and also join together with other like-minded believers in a community of faith and a community of practice. I mean, John's trying to build his business and bring in other people to work with him that are like-minded. And in this whole banking thing, in my client base, we already have privatized money loans going on between members of my community. We have about 105 members of our community now. We're introducing some new things coming up in the coming months, and we'll go over those in the podcast. John, what are your additional thoughts? Let's talk about that 20 to 30 age bracket. That's where you are. What are you trying to do now? You're trying to establish your way. You're married now, right? And you're trying to get ready for children. You're trying to build a foundation, and build a business, not just work for a wage.
I think the biggest thing is the family banking thing is great, but you have to have a source of income to put into it. It's not going to be a way to retire, in 5 years. But I think the biggest things is I've heard that your 30s to 40s are your biggest money making years. So you need to make use of that time. Can be one of the biggest. If you waste it, it won't probably. But yeah, I think right now just purposing to have a profitable business and then also use the assets to our advantage, whether it's equipment or just referrals, and using those to spur the business along and focus in on a really productive area and stick to it. So
yeah. So John, as a business goes, there's a difference of just being a high-paid individual on your own, earning a wage job versus actually creating
a
business,
system in which can run mostly by itself with some input from the owner. I think that's the biggest thing I'm working on right now, is trying to develop a system in which I can kind of get it going and then manage those people within it. And then, because right now it's mostly I have a well-paying job, not an actual business. I couldn't sell the business for much other than name recognition.
Amen.
So at the moment, I'm focusing on building a system that I can hire people to come alongside me, and then they can learn each of their tasks and give them, they know what's expected of them. I can keep them accountable to it. And then it also makes it clear for them, instead of being just a jack of all trades, they don't know where they fit in. So really making a system in which you can sell a product and deliver it in a very clear and decisive way. But that's kind of mostly what I'm focusing right now. And the private family banking comes alongside that.
Well, yeah,
along with investing, investing. We're real estate now and again. We do that.
Yeah.
And not currently at the moment, but we have in the past. So yeah.
And back to that idea of developing skills. Not everybody's meant to be a builder, right?
Or
a contractor.
Or a business owner.
So that's why we also recruit people into our private family banking delivery team. You can have different roles, whether you're helping people create them, being an agent with us, or maybe come alongside to do some of the back office work or whatever.
Right.
So
Alrighty, guys.
That's
Thanks for
going to be a
listening.
wrap.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for being with us on